Okay, good. Well, this is going to be a much shorter report than Sean's presentation. As many of you may know, the IETF formed a working group to look into Y2K implications as far as the IETF protocols are concerned. So I was the working group editor on the document and ended up writing most of it and doing a lot of the research. So this is just a short presentation on what we came up with. Well, the goals of the project were to look at internet protocols, and we specifically limited those to be protocols documented in the RFC series. There obviously are a lot of protocols that have grown up outside the RFC series, and we left those to their original designers to make some statement about. We finished our preliminary work last summer, and the document has actually been approved for publication as an RFC and is just awaiting me to fix the several hundred pages of margin errors that have occurred in it before it gets published. Some years ago, the RFC editor changed their rules as to how many columns of text could be in a page. So all of the references to the old RFCs that didn't have that requirement in it are now breaking all of the current requirements. So we formed a working group in the summer of '96, and we thought this would be easy. Hey, we had all of the people inside the IETF who had written these protocols originally, so we could just tap on their shoulders and hopefully get answers pretty quickly. And then our goal, obviously, was to communicate this information as widely as possible. Now, the concepts are well understood. It's not rocket science, regardless of what some of the pundits may try and let us know. The biggest problem we had was lack of interest. No one cared. None of the researchers, people want to go write new protocols. They want to design new things. I don't want to talk about the RFC I wrote 8 years ago. So we had a lot of problems with that. Just for your information, this is the URL of, that's great. I can sort of do that and pull my finger back and it magically appears. There's the URL for the current draft, which is the one that will be published, and my email address, if you have any questions. So what we did was we broke up all of the RFCs into 15 categories with the hope and desire to get in sort of an expert or two in each general category to go over the RFCs. Hopefully they're the sort of categorizations that you would think of yourself. Auto configuration, directory services, disk sharing, etc. And then there was the ever popular miscellaneous category as well. Now, we sort of took a two-step process. One was Paul Hoffman of the Internet Mail Consortium generously wrote a short Perl program that scanned all the RFCs looking for certain buzzwords and hot items like date, GMT, year, YY, et cetera, et cetera. And we got a fairly lengthy output and listing of those. And then we decided that we were going to manually read each and every RFC. And at the time, there was about 2,300 of them. That was a bad choice for me, because in the end, I ended up reading somewhere between 1,600 and 1,700 RFCs, because no one else wanted to do it. And I wanted to get this document off of my plate. A lot of interesting stuff in there. A lot of boring stuff, too. Anyway, all the research is complete. The issues we've come up with have been publicized to the relevant people. And like I said, we're just awaiting me fixing all of these margin issues for publication. And as you might expect, there's no major problems from the protocol level. You have to remember this is what we were looking at. But there were a few minor issues, which I'll go over quickly. For those of you who happen to be running an X500 directory server, particularly something that's older, there are some potential problems with those. But they're not really widely deployed on the internet, so it would be more of an internal problem for you. Now, there are a couple subtle issues in HTTP 1.1, and really in HTTP 1.0. One of the date formats that is a requirement to be understood is RFC 850 addresses, which are 2-year dates. And about a year ago, we did some analysis of a couple of the major caching servers and came up with about 20% of all traffic that was going through these sites were using the older formats. Now, this is not going to cause any cataclysmic failures at all. What it might do is it might interfere with caching characteristics. So a document may be older than the current one and not get updated, or it might be newer than, or it might be the same as the current one and get updated as well. So there might be some small operational issues as far as increased load or people reporting that their web pages are returning old information. But in general, it's probably a fairly small problem. In the email arena, if you actually have any email servers out there whose server software was written before '89 and not updated, you could run into problems because that was when RFC, 1123 came out, updating the dates that were in RFC 822. So you could have some minor problems there. I'm sure I don't have to go into a lot of detail about the DNS serial number issue. People here shouldn't be using, year, month, date, XX as your serial number. If you happen to be using it for your zone file, go read RFC 1982. It very clearly describes what the issues are and how to fix them. As Sean mentioned, there's a lot of time stamping that goes on in network management applications, particularly in MIBs. So you might get wrong information out of a network management station. And it's very vendor dependent because most of the MIB definitions are not clear enough to make a determination. We found a problem with the network paging protocol, but could not find anyone who was actually using the protocol, or at least no one was admitting to it, so we didn't think it was a major issue. Actually had to do with if you wanted to queue pages to page you at a certain time, the format was non-Y2K compliant. And the last one is in net news, both in NNTP and the Usenet message digest format. Both of these were written circa 10 years ago, and both of them specify 2-digit dates. Now, there is an NNTP working group, of which our humble note taker, I believe, is the chair, who supposedly was handed this information off to. It's fixed in the draft. So presumably there won't be any major catastrophes over it. You might expire some articles too early or keep them for longer than you would certainly like to. The caveats and cautions. Don't read too much into this. We examined protocols, not implementations. So we looked at SMTP, but we didn't dare look at send, mail, or exchange. That's someone else's problems. We examined protocols, not infrastructure. So BGP4 is great, but who knows what your Cisco routers will do, especially Cisco. And we looked at protocols and not end-user systems. So will Windows work? Does it work now? Will it ever work? All of these questions are not ours to address, only to lament. And remember, there are only 220 days remaining. That's it.